just to do this weekly review, that minhag is everything. People say a minhag is starker for not din, but that's just like a vart, a pismine. But in reality, for instance, the minhag Ashkenazim is to go with the Ramah, and the minhag of the Sfardim is to go with the Mechaber. So the whole halacha, the whole Shulchan Aruch is totally in your minhag. It's not just whether you have a minhag to tie your tefillin this way or tie your tefillin that way. The minhag is everything. You could even argue that you could say Safek Deraisa l'chumra sadas in the Yad Malachi, Safek Deraisa l'chumra, Safek Derabbanan l'kula. Minhag is not even a Safek. I mean, for sure you have to do it, but it's even stronger than a Safek. But not because we're into the minhagim, and it has to be hilchos minhagim. So minhag, a real halachic minhag is minhag hamakom. Not minhag avosenu. This kind of shocks people. Minhag hamakom. It used to be that our avos lived in the same place as their grandfather and their great-grandfather. And yafed, that we took over their minhagim, but that's not what it means. What it means is, if you live in a place, you live in Lublin, and the minhag in Lublin is to not eat gebraks, so you don't eat gebraks. So the minhag is a minhag of hamakom. We believe that that's the way. And I proved this halacha many times. Last week I spoke about two sugyas, the sugya of mezuzah, the sugya of Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. But the mezuzah is, the chiddush shabai was that a mezuzah, machlekes, mechaber, and rabbah, as it comes out, I went through all the rishonim last week, whether you hang a mezuzah this way or you hang a mezuzah that way. So what do? We hang the mezuzah this way. We want to make sure we're yotze all the days. So pointed out what the poskim say, that the Abba says you're not yotze anybody that way. You're yotze not the mechaber, not the rabbah, you're not yotze anybody that way. Elamai, that's our minhag. Our minhag is to do it this way. That becomes a kviyas mitzad atzmai. I see you want to see something.
How can we understand? You say that the minhag is for us is not like the Ramah, if there are achronim that could be chalak on the Ramah.
Right. So it's why do we say that? Why did the poskim say that? You mean?
How can poskim be chalak on the Ramah? That's the minhag to go back to the Ramah. What does it mean that the minhag is like the Ramah?
Mostly like the Gra. The Gra is often chaylik with the Ramah on what the minhag is. It's not the. In other words, the Ramah is telling us. Roiv of the Ramah is telling us what our minhag is.
Kach
noigin. That's the Roiv of the Ramah. There's tremendous lumness in it. There's a whole Ksosha Chosha written on the Ramah. I'm not knocking the Ramah. I'm upgrading minhagim. So when the Shulchan Aruch,
he just megala the minhag.
Right, he's saying that in the Artzos Hasfar, this the Rambam says in the Torah Moshe at the beginning, he says in the world of the Sfardim, where they didn't have a lot of access to the poskim that we have, the different Sfardim that we have, there's Aruah, the Lavush, all the different Sfardim. So they went the Rambam, the Rif, and the Ran. That was the way they paskin. We have a different level of access to Sfarim. So Mamela, our minhag, the minhag Ashkenaz, has always been different. But that's not my point right now. We talked about that. My point is this is straight from the Mishnah. Das Moshe, Das Yehudis. This is straight out of the Mishnah. The point is that sometimes you can have a minhag which is based in a pshara between the Rishonim. Based on a pshara between the Rishonim, and a pshara, a pshara is nishta in, nishta her. Like if you go to a beis din, and I say like this, and you say like that, and we're arguing about $100,000, and the beis din is okay, like make a pshara, 50-50. So nobody's happy. Who's happy? Because it's not emes. It's not emes. Either you owe me money or I owe you money. So whether it was 50-50. Nevertheless, there's a din. Parshas Yisrael, we learn out that based on they're supposed to make a pshara. A pshara, let me say it in a lumdish way, so all you yeshiva graduates will chop it. A minhag is a pshara. A pshara is a din b'fnei atzmai. A pshara is not the pshat that it took a little bit of this and a little bit of that. It's a new din that this is how Klal Yisrael is doing. And I would say most of what we're noiheg, and this is what's so important to me about this subject, most of what we're noiheg is different minhagim. So, for instance, people, I always say this, like the sarcastic people say, have to wear a yarmulke? Did Rabbi Akiva wear a yarmulke? Did Moshe Rabbeinu wear a yarmulke? Who cares if they wore a yarmulke? They didn't wear a yarmulke. We wear a yarmulke. That's what we do. We wear a yarmulke. That became the way we are Jewish. If they didn't do it in the 2nd century, if they didn't do it in the it's not important, because I don't want to say Yiddishkeit evolved, but somehow or another it became. I'll tell you, like the Chiddush, the biggest Chiddush Shebedereinu about this. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but the biggest Chiddush that we have is that electricity, when electricity came out, whatever it was, 1880, 1890, like it started to work out. So it didn't feel Shabbos-tic, but nobody knew exactly what's wrong with it. So what exactly is wrong with it? I'm saying everybody here has looked at the sugya, but what's exactly wrong? So you're making a fire. Okay, so are you making a fire? Is it eish? Comes the Chazon Ish, he says that's not eish, it's bona. You're putting together circuits, and everybody. A spark is a fire. A spark's not a fire. It was it was very interesting because like there was never a clarity in why we don't use electricity, because according to one, the other thing is mutter. Like if you say it's only eish, from Shlomo Zalman disproved the whole concept of eish. There's no eish by a motor. He says only by a light there would be eish if you're saying it's the filament. But what's the story? The story is that at the Knesset Hagadola, so the one that the Chafetz Chaim went to, that famous, we have pictures of the Knesset Hagadola. So there was a big to-do about electricity. It was one of the sessions at the beginning, was to do about electricity. Why is it usher? It should be usher. And the Chafetz Chaim, saw that this is like, if you're going to have half the Jewish world using electricity, half the Jewish world not using electricity, why are you turning on the lights? Because I'm from Lumja. Turn the lights in Lumja. It's going to be another log on the fire with the period of Klal Yisrael. They said, listen, whatever the reason is, we don't use electricity. From Jews don't use electricity. Don't turn on electricity on Shabbos. It's a does it even apply to this, to digital technology? There's no age, there's no bona, we don't do it. Now you could say, okay, well then I'm b'shas chak, let me make a phone call or send a text message. One of the kids in the park, Hashem Yazori, one of the kids in the park, I said, what are you texting? I said, doing WhatsApps on Shabbos. He says, it's not even a D'Rabbanan. It's the godless of our educational system here. Tell me it's not even a D'Rabbanan, he told me. It's okay. No, but what's the answer to that? The answer is that it's none of your business to rise to D'Rabbanan. This is what Jews don't use cell phones on Shabbos, so that's all. And that's a very strong thing. It's a very strong thing called Minhag Yisrael Teiruhu. That's what it is.
So is that Chilul Shabbos or is it something else?
Our minhag is to consider it Chilul Shabbos. You're asking, like, would the Sanhedrin give him skila? I think they would. I think there's many rayas for the Gemara. I spoke about it. It's like on the Shabbos Shuvah. There's many rayas for the Gemara that if you're violating a minhag which is related to Shabbos, you get skila like Shabbos. This is how we keep Shabbos. This is how we wear tefillin. This is how we learn Torah. This is what we do. So
for sure, Matama Yayin. For sure, Matama.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's for sure. Even a boomer, but even a boomer.
Can we convince the Rav to talk about using electricity on Shabbos here in Eretz Yisrael?
Because of the Chilul Shabbos. I'm happy to talk about one of my favorite subjects, but I just want to say this: the minhag is to use it. Like there's a minhag. The minhag is lahakel. Now there are many things that minhagim that are luchubra. There are many minhagim that are lukula because it was too hard for the people or whatever. But the classic example, also everything's a classic example, but what I've talked about for a few weeks is B'nai Yisrael Hichmir Alatz, the din of the Reb Zeira, that by whole Hilchas Nida is a minhag of the B'nai Yisrael. Aleim Hashalom. The B'nai Yisrael made a halacha that their Yoshev Zayin Akiyim Al Tipas Dam Kachardal, like. The Rabbanim were like Mapito. What are you talking about? Like they took over halacha. It became the minhag. The Ran says now it's a neder. Maybe minhag is mitam. A lot of different reasons. Okay, let's just yeah.
So just my understanding, does a minhag have to be like established as a minhag itself, or could it just be that in a certain area this is just what was done, and like over time it just became the norm. But does it have to be like
Like a Misa based dinner.
Like, hey, this is our minhag, and this is everybody needs to follow this, or just things happen.
It's a very important question, and it's a very important question. We talked about it, but first of all, like I said, a minhag is only in a makom, and it has to be the Rabbanei Amakom. Otherwise, this is where Moshe writes. Moshe writes that you can't have something which is, let's say, above a mice, and that became the minhag. It has no makar. It has to go through the Zayin Tuvei Ayir in the olden days, or the Rabbanim of the city. Something has to establish as a minhag, and then right people decide to keep it. And there's also what we have to do is the sugya. Next week, I hope when I get to the sugya minhag tois, like which minhagim do we not have to keep, is also a big sugya because of what you're saying. Yeah.
The noise is sort of clear on Atzmon, so it sounds like it started bottom up.
It's up, very good, very good. It started bottom up. So what's up with that? So the answer is Amar Rab Zera, Rab Zera said, and the Rambam tells us it was a davar shebamidyan. We don't know when those B'nos Yisrael lived. It actually became a Raisa Sanhedrin. It went in front of the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court, and it went in front of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin said, "Okay, we're going to keep this." So all the Gemara is saying is a history lesson. How did this halacha of what we call Hilchas Nida, which is really Hilchas Avagedola, how did that even happen? And the answer is it started with B'nai Yisrael, and from here we learn how a minhag happens. Is that Yiddishkeit today? It would say that if somebody is not keeping the chumrah of the B'nai Yisrael sheichmir alatzman, you're not keeping Hilchas Nida, not true. There was a Rav and Spiritual, remember, who was matching people to Toivel like a Nida Deraisa, like 7 days from the time they get a period, they could go to the mikveh. He became like a conservative rabbi. I mean, like Mapito, you can't go against the B'nai Yisrael. You can't. It's an interesting. I'm sorry, would you?
A few seconds back,
Okay.
I wanted to ask, so should we not be trying to be more machmir than people in previous generations with them? Like, let's say with checking for bugs, with light boards. They didn't have that 100 years ago, or the 1800 years before that. So why should we ever take out a light board? Even if there's mamash bug in there, and we know if we took a light board, why does it matter? Because they didn't do that.
Philosophically, I believe you 100%. But do you want to eat bugs? It's hard for me to believe that the Rav and Abaya did not eat broccoli. Just don't believe it. So somebody told me, well, the Shtana Abrius, like Adrava, the Shtana Abrius, where there was probably more bugs then than there are now. No, like why did bugs become more? Now they're pesticides and all kinds of things like Mechatesa. But it's interesting. I don't know if it's totally to what you do and what I do, but poskim say you have to check certain bugs. And I agree with you. Like if we start going, I'm saying my personal opinion. Like if we start saying things like you're not allowed to eat corn, you're not allowed to eat strawberries, you're not allowed. So we're stelling into Klal Yisrael something which isn't there. You want to be machmir, don't eat corn. Nothing's going to happen if you don't eat corn for the rest of your life. But that's a chumrah. There's a Rav I know in B'nai Brak, he won't eat fish because there's worms in fish. Ain't l'davar sof. So but there's a minhag to eat fish, isn't there? So and there's nothing new that happened that fish all of a sudden got buggy. Yeah.
It kind of extends of that question because we consider like the South African community in terms of taking 3 hours between what you eat, right? And what particular time does that change? Does that change because you leave South Africa, you make Aliyah, and then there's no such thing as 3 hours?
That's right. That's right. You have to go with the minhag or makom. There's no this business of doing what we did.
Follows their fathers for that. That's interesting.
Huh?
It's interesting because people follow what their fathers do for that.
I tell my kids not to follow what I do. Yeah. It's minhag makom. You could say like this. You could say what?
I thought we said there isn't really a minhag makom in most places.
Yeah, I know, but let's say something like keeping how many hours you keep before I get into 5.2.
5.31.
Yeah, 5.31. It seems to be the minhag hashach in the whole yeshiva world that you see like that we keep 6 hours or 5 and something hours. That seems to be the minhag. Now, let's say somebody says, "Well, I'm from German extraction, so I keep 3 hours." And we had this conversation once, like somebody was So if you keep 6 hours, it means the 6th hour. So it's 5.1. You have to keep 1 minute into, according to many poskim, into the 6th hour. So I said, l'chayra, if you keep 3 hours, it means you have to keep 2 hours and 1 minute. So somebody was sitting here and he says, well, I'm from Amsterdam. I only keep 1 hour. 1 minute, that's all. So, no, it's a great chop, no? So, Go 1 minute. So, what's the answer to this yid? There's a minhag. The minhag is you don't eat milk and meat together. It's a minhag. Now the Gemara is not clear. One minhag says 24 hours. It's not clear in the Gemara how many hours it has to be. But I'm saying there is such a thing, I think, as the yeshiva world. I would say that like the Yekes that keep 3 hours. So it doesn't help that they did so in Germany. It has to be that they reestablished themselves here as a community and they keep 3 hours as a community. That's a different story. A great rabbanim in Washington Heights, they were conveyed to keep certain minhagim to keep the people strong. But it's not because of that, it's because of now.
Did they tell them Shammai live in different communities? How would they know it differently?
Yeah.
Well,
all over the Gemara. This is what I'm showing you.
Uh-huh.
This is exactly what I'm showing you. Now I want to begin. This will seem to be like a very trivial halacha to you, but I just want to make a point, and I want to try to explain this Gemara if I can. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin Kuf Beis, probably you're familiar. Fascinating Gemara. The Gemara is going on the Mishnah in Sanhedrin and says that there's Gimel Malachim. There's 3 kings that Elam Chelik Lo'elam Haba, 3 kings of Yehuda that they didn't have a Chelik Lo'elam Haba. Who are they? Shasiad, Menashe, Machlekes, okay, Achav, Yerovam ben Nevat. No? What do you want to add in? One of the prime ministers of Israel. So the Gemara says like this: Rav Ashi, and I want to talk about Rav Ashi for a minute, but in a minute. Rav Ashi, Oikim Ashleisha Malachim. He was giving Shiur. Rav Ashi. He lived in Masa Machsia in Bavel. This Machsia here is named after the one in Bavel. So Masa Machsia, that's where Rav Ashi lived, and he was giving Shiur. As a huge Rosh Yeshiva, huge, thousands of Talmidim. And Oikim Ashleisha Malachim, he left off his Shiur at the sugya of this Mishnah of the 3 kings. And he said, Lamachar niftach b'chavaraya. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about our chaverim, which was an interesting thing for him to say about Achav, Menashe, and Yerovam ben Nevat. 3 Rishayim. But, like it's kind of, I want to put something into Rav Ashi, Pakodesh, but it's fun to talk about these people in the sense that, like, everybody likes to talk about Elisha ben Avuya, like to try to psychoanalyze him. So what's up with Menashe? Menashe was a serious Rasha. I just want to remind you, Menashe HaMelech, so first of all, he forced the whole country. He was a son of Chizkiyahu HaMelech. His father was a big tzaddik, and he forced the whole country to worship Avodah Zarah. Meaning, you put it in the curriculum. You have to, and you weren't allowed to have any. We're not allowed to have a school that would teach that you're not allowed to worship Avodah Zarah. You have to have a getchka in every classroom. That's what Menashe did. It was crazy the way, and he was so successful. Ad kedei kach that his son Yoshiyahu found a Sefer Torah, and that was like a big chiddush. He found a Sefer Torah. And it's an amazing story of Menashe. Not only that, but he hated Talmidei Chachamim. Harag Talmidei Chachamim. Pasuk says that in Malachim, Harag Yeshayahu es Yerushalayim mipeh el peh. Menashe killed people in Yerushalayim mipeh el peh. Means from one side of Yerushalayim to the other side of Yerushalayim. So the Gemara says mipeh el peh. The first peh was peh when his people to teach Torah. The first peh was his grandfather Yeshayahu Hanavi that he killed. He murdered his grandfather Yeshayahu Hanavi because he was a Talmid Chacham. Hated Talmidei Chacham. Like what kind of a mamzer is this guy Menashe? killed his grandfather because he was a Talmud Chacham in Pel all the way down to the smallest Talmud Chacham. He hated Talmidei Chachamim, and he forced everyone to worship Avodah Zarah. And comes Rav Ashi, so at the end of the story of Menashe, let's just say the story, at the end of the story of Menashe, so he didn't want to do tshuva. He says, bring me all the different Avodah Zarahs. Let me see if I can get them to get me better. He was in huge pain. He was in huge pain. He had Yisurim Naraim, the Torah says, at the end of his life, sick. And he tried every Avodah Zarah to try to get him better. It didn't work. Myself, he davened to Hashem, and he got better. So this, the Gemara says, Menashe asa tshuva. That's a funny kind of a tshuva, no? So it's like nothing else works. And he did tshuva. So the Gemara tells us that the Malachim said, no. It's a Gemara. The Gemara says, no, we're not being makabel this guy's tshuva. I mean, this guy's a Rasha Barusha, and it was a b'di'evet that he did tshuva. What are we going to be makabel his tshuva? And that's what the Malachim wouldn't be makabel his tshuva. I guess you need Malachim to be makabel your tshuva. So from this Gemara you learn. HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chaser chatira tachas kisei hakavod, and he made a hole under the kisei hakavod, and he took his tshuva in from there. Medrash Pliya, the whole story of Menashe. Comes Rav Ashi, it's our Nachzer Ludidon. Comes Rav Ashi, and he says that we finish here today, and tomorrow we're going to talk about our Chaverim, Menashe Achav and Yerovam ben Nevat. L'machar niftach b'chavaraya. Asa Menashe is chazile b'chalmei. Says the Gemara that Rav Ashi went to sleep that night, and he had a dream, and in the dream Menashe came to him, night before the Shiur. Menashe HaMelech came to him, Amrle, and Menashe tells him in the dream, Chavrayach v'chavrei de'avuch karisalon, you call me your friend. He meant it to say, Rashi says, who do you think you are that you're my friend? The Melech. By the way, Menashe was a gadol b'Torah. It's Yadua. He was a huge Talmud Chacham, son of Chizkiyahu HaMelech. He had a good education, so to speak. So you're calling Rav Ashi, who are you? I want to point out Rav Ashi was the Gadol Hador. Rav Ashi is the Gadol Hador. We learn Gemara, he doesn't get enough credit, Rav Ashi, because we learn Gemara, Shas, Daf Yomi, all that. Like, the author of the Talmud Bavli is Rav Ashi. Period. He wrote it. It took him 60 years. He wrote it. He had about Dur Akaba, about Dur Basra, he had a whole Kehillat, all the Amoraim that were with him, and in this he recorded 6 generations of Amoraim, and all the way from the Mishnah till him, and he wrote the Gemara. So it was the same as Rebbe. Same as Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. The Gemara makes the comparison. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was a Talmud Muvak of Rava and Rav Kahana. So anyway, who do you think you are? Then Menashe tells him, Mehecha boyis l'mishrei hamoitzi. Tell me something. How do you slice the bread before you make hamotzi? Okay, this is what's important here. How do you slice the bread before you make hamotzi? Amar, here's even stronger than the question. It says, Rav Ashi lo yadana. I don't know how to do that. Gadol Hador wrote the Shas. He doesn't know how to. Lo yadana. Rav Ashi put the story in. Amar le. So he said, Menashe said, Mehecha debayis lemishrei hamoitzi loy gemiras. You don't even know how to slice a piece of bread before you make hamoitzi. V'chavrayach karisalon, and you consider yourself a chaver of mine. You don't know anything. You don't know anything. What a dream. Amar le. So Rav Ashi says, okay, akranli. So please tell me, how do you slice bread? And tomorrow in the Shiur, I'll say over how to slice bread. I'll say it in your name. Mishmach, the pirka. So Menashe told him in the dream, Amarle mehecha de karem bishula. So where do you slice the bread? Mehecha de karem kuf reish yud mem bishula. So what's karem mean? Crust? That's how you like. Krum. Like the cream that goes on top? That's what you're thinking? It's an interesting word, right? Amarle, so Menashe says to, so Ravashi says to Menashe, there's such a thing, yeah. Amarle, I'll show you Rashi. Amarle, me'acher the chakima skulahai, my tamaka palchis avodas kecham. You're so smart, Menashe, so why are you worshiping Avodah Zarah? Why'd you worship Avodah Zarah? Like anybody that he braids doesn't worship Avodah Zarah. You worship Avodah Zarah. You're so smart, you know how to cut the bread. Is this a Medrash plea of this whole Gemara? You're so smart, you know how to cut the bread. You're teaching me what I don't know, and yet you worship Avodah Zarah. Amarle. So Menashe told him, all in the dream, Yehavas Hasam, if you would have been there, famous words, having nakat b'shipule glima b'shinach ra'atada basra. You would have picked up your robe, held it into your teeth so it doesn't get muddy, and you would have come run after Avodah Zarah together with me, Ravashi. L'machar, Ravashi woke up the next day. Amar Luhu l'Rabbanan, he said to his Talmidim, to the Rabbanan, Niftach b'Ravavasa, let me tell you what I learned from my Rebbe. He told him how to do B'tziyas Hapas. I saw one of these things in the Yaakov, I just saw this morning, he says, Kama joy nishtapech v'kama kulmusim nishtabru b'kavanos hamaymer hazeh. So, okay, I figure any sefer, right? How much was written about? I figure every sefer I'm going to open is going to explain to me the skimar. I can't find anything. I don't know what. I guess the kulmusim were nishmar. I don't even know what he's talking about. Maral. I looked. Tzaddik. I looked wherever I knew how to look. I looked in Google. It's not there. If it's not in Google, it's not there. Right. I don't know what he's talking about. He's Kama, what a lashon, right? How much? Kama diyoy nishtapich v'kama kulmusin nishtabru. Rashi says, this is the Yoris Tavash. Rashi says, just want to get the halacha. Let's get to the halacha. We only have a few minutes here. Unclear, mehecha dekarim bishula. Where do you cut the bread? By the way, B'tziyas Hapas, we don't do b'chlal because most of us are eating sliced bread. The only time we're doing B'tziyas Hapas is on Shabbos, but it's not a Shabbos halacha. It's an all the time halacha. It's not about Shabbos. It comes up on Shabbos because we do lechem mishnah and you need to have shleimim. But it can also come up. You're eating a bagel, you're eating a roll, you're making a sandwich. It also comes up. Eretz Yisrael more than America. America, everything's sliced already. The whole country is pre-sliced.
Can you paskin from a dream?
Paskins from a dream. The Mefarshim asked that. That I saw a lot of Mefarshim. How can you paskin for a dream? How do you paskin according to Menashe? But the most important question, is of all the things for Menashe to tell Ravashi, he's an Amoritz, which he wasn't, to pick some kind of a thing about how to cut bread. Like that? Do you even know how to cut bread? No, I don't know. He doesn't know how to cut bread. So didn't he have a Messiah from Har Sinai, like how to cut bread? Basic. L'chor, you eat. You know how to cut bread. Think. So so Rashi says.
Bread is the staple.
Okay. So think a little bit. I mean, think about what this could possibly mean, Menashe. Rashi says, Mehecha dekarim bishula. Rashi brings three lashonis. I'll go very quickly. The first three pshatim makom dekarim bishula. The first pshat is in makom shenikroim paneh shel pas b'tanar. I think that's what you meant. Where it starts to change color. Nikram, it means it starts to change color. I'm not sure what the root of that word is, but krum. Lashon, there's a whole shugel Rashi on that. Rashi also, I don't think this is the normal derech of Rashi to bring three pshatim, and another pshat might be, he says, mehecha dekadim, where it gets cooked first, which is a little bit different. But then he says on that, like, where's the first place the bread cooks? You take the bread, put it in the oven, and where's the first place that it cooks? So he says, that's the makom dekarim b'shula. But Rashi says, v'hainu hach, it really comes out the same thing. no nafkamina halacha. The third shot, he says, mecha the gomar bishula, where it was cooked the most. Karim bishula, like different lashonis of what karim could mean. And the poskim say in Rashi, including Tosfos, say in Rashi that there's a difference. But what the common denominator of the whole thing is that you don't cut the bread where you think you should cut the bread. You don't cut the bread where it's soft and smooth and nice. And okay, here's a piece of bread I want to eat. You find what seems to be clear is you find the hardest part of the bread, the most difficult part of the bread. I mean, a thick bread, not what we eat so much, but we're not talking about Wonder Bread here. In other words, you think of a bread, like the old time.
It was fasted on this, all of this.
Oh, so let me show you something here. You think? Hilchos Shabbos. Where's the Shulchan Aruch? Right, that one's there. All right, everything but where it is. Shulchan Aruch, Kuf Samach Zayin, Hilchos B'tzias HaPas. So the Shulchan Aruch says, Boitzeya B'pas, here, Kuf Samach Zayin. From this, everything's from this Gemara. There is no other makar for this than Shulchan Aruch. And if we had a few minutes, I would take you through the tour in the Beis Yosef. It's fascinating. Boitzeya B'pas, B'makim Shenefa Hetiv. So it says the Shulchan Aruch Paskins that you cut the bread where it's most Shenefa Hetiv, where it's most baked. Shulchan Aruch says the Ramah Ubepas Didan Yesh Livtzoya B'tzad HaPas, on the tzad of the pas. So let me just explain what Dr. Freeland said. That in the Gemara you find a Hilchos Shabbos, and you can see this today if you go to Gula, to the Bukhari and Pita factory. You can see that when you make a pita, so they make the pita, and then they take it and they stick it to the side of the oven, and that's how they bake it. And it's a big chachma, because when the pita is done, a proper pita, where they make lafas one way and pita is another way, a whole different chachma. But when they make the pita to the side of the oven, boom, falls off. Like a fruit falls off the tree, it's gamar bishulai. So now here's what's interesting about it: that you take it's on the tzidei hatanur, and then it falls off onto the floor. So now you have a top and a bottom. So what would you say is the most baked? Reb Shlomo, what would you say? The top in front of you, or the top is the part was on the outside, and the bottom. I'm sorry. It falls down, right? So if it falls down, this is what the Rishonim speak about, this exact case. Put it on the tzidei hatanur, and then it becomes a pita, and it falls down. So now the part that was mistabek to the tanur is the top. The part that was by the avir is on the bottom. There's a Beis Yosef that this is the machlokes, the two lashonos in Rashi. Do you cut? Is the first part? The top, the part that was next to the tanur, mistabek la tanur, is that the most cooked, or adarabah, the part that was closer to the heat was most cooked? Like you'll make toast tomorrow morning, and you'll see what part gets baked the most. So that's the shaila. So the Ramah says, okay, that's in the time of the Gemara. But pasti done, but in our pas, what do? We make loaves. It was a pilusher, the Rabbah. So there was no such thing as pitas. Pitas we have here in the Middle East, right? So the pasti done, the way we make it, how do we do it? We place the loaves of bread on the oven floor or on a rack. The pasti done, yesh livtzoya b'tzad hapas. So in the time of Menashe and Rav Ashi, the question is, do you go on the top or do you go on the bottom? To Lashonis and Rashi. But in the time of the Ramah, we don't eat that kind of bread. We don't even know what they're talking about. We just know from the Gemara. So what we do is, here's your bread. It's on the table, and which is the most. Now your shaila is, which part was nefa yoser? So he says, the Ramah says you cut b'tzad hapas. B'tzad hapas. So here's your pas. Cut b'tzad hapas. Isn't that what it means? For Ramah. The pasti don yesh l'soy b'tzad hapas. Then he brings, just like takes it straight out of the Bach, the Lashon of the Bach, that he says, "V'yachtoich ma'at mitzad ha'elyon v'atachton v'atzdodim." So the correct way to do this is you have the two Lashonis in Rashi, you have a Tosfos, and this is for the Hagoyis Maimonides, and Kach, the Bach says, Kach Noag HaMaram, that means the Maram Rottenberg, that the correct way to do it is you take your bread and you make a full circle around it and then cut from the side. Two things. To be Yoitza, all the Shitas. I mean, well, is this even an important, it's a Shulchan Aruch. Somebody has showed me that they have a sefer from Rav David Feinstein, Olav Shalom, and somebody asked him, is this still a thing to do? Do you have to still do this, cut your bread before you cut it? Like our bread's a challah, let's say by a challah. So he said, no Indian anymore. That's the best psak since sliced bread. The whole thing is not nogay anymore, right? The whole thing is not nogay anymore. But here, it's Shulchan Aruch. I'm just talking here, but Rav David Feinstein is Rav David Feinstein. But the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah say you have to do this B'tziyas HaPas. The main thing I want to bring out, and I want to try to say Pshat B'Dasha if you'll allow me, but the main thing I want to bring out is this: that here we have the whole our minhag, which I don't think is our minhag. I don't know. I don't go to people's houses, but is that what you do all around, and then a little bit on the side?
No.
You do that? Well, you give a little thing, right? I haven't been to anybody's house in years, but is that what you don't do that? What? No, maybe we just don't know what the minhag is. So, but that's what the Ramah said. That's what the Ramah said. It's got all around. This is mamish a fantastic new chumrah. You cut all around your challah and minatzad. So be machmir like the Marami Rotenberg. Is it a chumrah? It's a minhag. So is it you cut all around, and what's the reason? To be careful, to be Yotzei, the first Lashon Rashi, the second Lashon Rashi, and the third Lashon Rashi, which the Beis Yosef brings Paiskim and Rishonim to go all over the place, taking Rashi right in the first Lashon, second Lashon. Let's be Yotzei all the Shitas and cut all around. And that's what the Ramah brings, La Halacha. The Bir Halacha brings the Gra, and the Gra, and this may be why we don't do it, Didon, says the Gra, Hatanurim Shayu B'Shas. The Gra says the Tanurim that they have, B'Zman HaShas, make no difference to this halacha, to the ovens that they have nowadays. So the Gra didn't like the whole thing. Maybe he didn't cut it at all. Maybe he didn't make any sin at all, like Rav David Feinstein. It could be. But the Gra didn't like that the Ramah said, Ubepasti done. Kilu, like we have new kinds of pas. I just want to suggest something kind of wild, if you'll allow me. Have your attention. The Menashe HaMelech need to understand what the way the Mefarshim explain Menashe HaMelech. Like we come to us that somebody who was the son of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, Talmud Chacham Gadol, Baki B'Kachim B'Taris, the Gemara says, and he's teaching Avodah Zarah. Whatever we're going to explain, he was wrong. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu somehow makabel his tshuva also, even though it made no sense in the world of Gashmis. And the Mefarshim explain in Malachim that Menashe had an idea, a shita, that if we're going to be a country, and we're going to have, we're going to be a country, and we're going to be able to defend ourselves, and we're going to be able to have a government and all those kind of things, we need to get a little tough. This is not going to be with Talmidei Chachamim. Not going to be with Edel Mention. Everybody can relate to this point. Who was it right after the establishment of the State of Israel? No. Talk about the Tzion. He said that we need he had a good lesson. We need a more muscular Jew. It wasn't Ben-Gurion. It was we need a more muscular Jew. Like a Jew can't keep on looking the way they've been looking for all these years. We need something stronger. Okay, Va'adas Noisenas, that's probably like we like Sahal, everything. I'm pro. I'm saying it's a new look. That's not how Jews looked in for generations and generations. It's a new next door. Thank you. Nordo. He was a philosopher at the time of Ben Gurion. It was like a Jewish philosopher. He said this Nakuda, we need a more muscular Jew. It was a polemic against the yeshiva world. Sitting there, hunched over their Gemaras. So, obviously this is not our shita, but it was clearly the shita Menashe. That Ad Kedei Kach, that he killed his grandfather, Yeshayahu. It was like a new punim to, on some level, you got to be God to get this. On some level, there was a L'Shem Shemayim here. On some level, it could be wrong. You're killing people, horrible. The Malachim are not Makabal as Tshuva. You had Yisurim Noiraim. And on some level, there was some kernel of, I want the Jewish people to continue. I'm allowed to say? Yeah. So, in the Arizal, this is called. In other words, the pnimius of Klal Yisrael is very rach and very soft and very beautiful, but then there's a klipa. Klipa is a shverzach, a hard thing, and you need a klipa. If you didn't have a klipa on an orange, the orange would become sabra. Sabra, klipa. Every fruit has a klipa to protect it according to how much protection it needs. That's how strong the HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the klipa. So Menashe was called the klipa. It's not my chiddush. The Zohar calls him the klipa of nafshes Yisrael. The symbolism. So Menashe is trying to explain himself to Rav Ashi. Menashe is explaining to himself, Rav Ashi, do you know how to cut a piece of bread? Lo yadanu. I don't know. The symbolism of B'tzias Hapas is the klipa. This is the klipa that's around the bread, and you have to be masakin that klipa in the most klipadic place. Machlek is where it is, but it's in the most difficult. It's counterintuitive. You cut the bread where you're going to eat it, or where it's softest to cut, not where it's hardest to cut. But that's the this was the klipa of Menashe. This is called in the Zohar the klipa of Menashe. It's a very interesting thing. It was I'm just, if you want to think about this further, go ahead. I'm not going to talk about it very much further because it's unbelievable stuff here. Because, and I heard it with my ears from Rav Hutner, Zatzal. He said that Rav Ashi, he said he wrote the book. Yeah, he wrote the Talmud Bavli. He wrote it twice. He wrote it once, he didn't like it, he wrote it twice. It's interesting what happened between that Madura Kama and the Madura Basra, famous things in history. Where it says Rav Ashi that the Malach HaMavos, he met the Malach HaMavos. Malach HaMavos, it's time for you to die. It's a Gemara. It's time for you to die. So he said, no, leave me for 30 days. I need a Chazer Shas again. Just want to make sure that it's clear before I die. So 30 days goes by, and he meets the Malach HaMavos again, and he says, okay, now, time to die. So Rav Ashi says, what's your rush? Ma dochka kulai. Like, chill. Die tomorrow. Like, what's the... Ma dochka lamar kulai. He said to the Malach HaMavos. The Malach HaMavos said, the reason why it's dachukli, that you should die, is because your son is waiting to take over. Vein malchus achas b'chaverta afilu k'malanim. Marba Rav Ashi. Says Marba Rav Ashi has to take over, and he can't take over until you die. Two separate malchiyos. It's gewaldig. Rav Ashi, Rav Hutner said, Rav Ashi, like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, took all the halachos that we knew, all the Beis Hillel, all the Beis Shammai, all the Rabbi Kiva, Rav Chacham, Rav Meir, and he made it mamash easy. Little children can learn Mishnayos. Rav Ashi also made it easy to learn all the machlekes that was from the time of the Mishnah and time of the Gemara, until he realized there has to be a klipa to Torah Shebal Peh. You know what I'm saying? The Gemara is hard by design. I believe that was the Madura Basra of Shas. it's meant to be that not everybody can open up a Gemara and boom, you understand it. Why did Rav Ashi? He didn't know what Steinsaltz knew, or what the Art Scroll knew, or what Rashi knew. I mean, why do you need somebody with Farshim on a Gemara? The answer is it was difficult by design, because that's the klipa machshava of being able to be a Gemara cup and be able to bust through and break through the derech halimud, where it's not a read. Gemara is not a read. Even Mishnayos could be a read. Tanakh could be a read. Rav Hutner explained that he did the reason, the necessity for this klipa was because you see that the Mishpatim Ba'yadam, you see that the Goyim took the Tanakh and they made it their own. They know every pasuk better than we know. They know every pasuk. They know everything. They're quoting and quoting and quoting. Misquoting. When I was back in Buffalo, so a lady, an old European survivor, she told me that she went to a non-Jewish funeral, and the priest is talking, and he says, she was telling me this over. The priest is talking. He lays me down by green pastures. He walks me through the valley of the shadow of death. She says to me, "For was bei the Yidden nicht da so schöne Sachen." Well, but the Rav Hutner that they won't master Shas this way, because Shas is protected by the klipa of Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi said to the Menashe, "Okay, you're my Rebbe in this. Meaning, I'm not going to kill anybody, and I'm not going to be over the Zar, I'm not going to legislate over the Zar, but the Rebbe in the klipa comes in Shulchan Aruch and Kuv Samach Zayin, a whole simon of what we do. Linyanenu of Minhag." Which is, okay, that's the pshat, take it or leave it, and I think that's the pshat in the Gemara. But in Yonenu, so when we have, and this is the making of this minhag, when you have a number of different shitas as to how to break through the klipa, so says the Ramah, do them all. The Ramah from the Ramah Rottenberg, do them all, and that becomes the minhag. Now, it's not the minhag, Beseder, so it's not the minhag.
How does it become buckle?
What, the minhag?
Any minhag, yeah.
Good question. But it's not a minhag tos. It's a Ramah. But you can see from here that we don't keep every Ramah. Totally in what the minhag is. So he's telling us what the minhag is. Okay, leave it up. Thank you for listening.